Hello, my name is Russell Myers. Welcome to And Unity for All. Let's take a look at this the allegations of, chemical weapons in Syria and the U.S. response to it and our own history regarding chemical weapons, okay? All right, the U.S. is claiming that Syria had used chemical weapons. The Syrian government used chemical weapons on their own people. Their allegations, nothing has been proven. We don't even know right now if there was actually a chemical attack at all. So far, the evidence is saying that there was no chemical attack. Actual investigation by journalists and Russian forces are documenting that there was no chemical attack that happened. But, so let's protect the civilians. Right, okay, how do we go about that? So the claim is that there are toxic nerve agents stored in buildings in urban areas, and precursors. We'll get to precursors in a minute. So what do we do about that? Let's bomb those buildings. Okay, so if there are all these toxic chemicals that are stored in an urban area, what would be the natural response, consequence of this? You would release those toxic chemicals into the atmosphere, into the surrounding areas. And so you're scattering powders and liquids and all this stuff. So you would wind up killing hundreds, thousands of people. And did we hear about any of that happening? No, didn't happen. All right, precursors. What is a chemical precursor? A chemical precursor is basically any two chemicals that you can mix together to make a toxic agent. Castor beans. Castor beans contain a poison called ricin. Castor oil is used for many industrial purposes, such as mold releases. It's used for medications. If you've ever taken cascara or docusate or castor oil, you use castor beans. They all contain it. Any chemistry student can walk through your house and find precursors to chemical agents. Have you ever purposely or accidentally mixed bleach and ammonia? You know what you did? You created a toxic nerve agent. If you've got those two things, bleach and ammonia in your cleaning cabinet, you have toxic agent precursors in your cleaning cabinet. Many chemical agents and precursors have a lot of domestic, household, agricultural, and industrial uses. Ammonia, chlorine, phosphates. I used to have a garden in Albuquerque, and I spread phosphates by the hundreds of pounds because the soil was so alkaline. I used it to acidify the soil. And the chemical releases. I used to live in the Texas Hill Country, and one night the hospital went on red alert because there was a turkey farm down the road, and they had an explosion which released ammonia gas into the atmosphere. The area for tens of miles around the turkey farm had to be immediately, emergently evacuated. So that's what happens when you have an explosion with toxic chemicals. If anybody had remained in that area, they would have died or gotten drastically ill. So, yeah, bombing. Yeah, and bombing itself. What does bombing do? It destroys entire communities, destroys industrial capabilities, collapses buildings, burying people in rubble, turns the buildings themselves into flying shrapnel, and then afterward, the area is too unsafe to be wandering around, and more people wind up getting injured and or killed trying to retrieve any belongings that may remain, trying to salvage things. Yeah, this is how you save civilians, by bombing them. No. All right. Lots of people have pointed out that the timing of this is just highly in question, just like the one last year. There was no political or tactical advantage to the Syrian government to be doing this. I'm not going to go into that. That's been well covered. What is our government doing and our media quiet about? Let's look at the comparison between a chemical attack that affected, roughly 100 people. Compare that to the shooting of men, women, and children from Palestine that have been peacefully protesting, shot by Israeli snipers, and the Israeli military stated they know where every bullet landed. They've shot journalists, but yeah, the mainstream media and our government not going to say a word about it. But Israel is our friend. So bullets ripping through flesh and bone, killing people by the hundreds or thousands is acceptable, but respiratory distress, which could come from smoke and dust from a collapsing building, is a monstrosity. Why? Because the government and the media, backed by the military-industrial complex, tell you that one is a monstrosity. Guess what? They're making money off of selling those bullets. They're not making money. Oh, wait, they're making money off the bombs. Let's take a look at U.S. history of the use and enabling of chemical weapons in my lifetime. And this is a short version. Agent Orange in Vietnam. That has millions still suffer the effects. Cancers, birth defects. It continues on generations after we stop using it. Our own veterans still suffer from Agent Orange syndrome. We gave Saddam Hussein chemical weapons to use against Iran and his own people. We gave him those weapons. We have directly used depleted uranium in Iraq and Syria. That has resulted in cancer, birth defects, poisoning of the areas that we bombed. Those areas cannot be used for decades, possibly generations. And the victims will suffer for the rest of their lives. Possibly children born with birth defects will suffer for the rest of their lives. We have directly used white phosphorus in Iraq and Syria. We have provided white phosphorus to Israel to use against Palestine. White phosphorus is one of the worst things you can imagine. Nothing will put it out once it's burning. The only authorized use is for destruction of equipment. Look up images of it being used. It's widely dispersed from helicopter gunships. There's nothing targeted about the use. Once it starts burning, no water will put it out. It will burn underwater. It has no problem burning directly through flesh and bone. It will burn through hardened steel plate armor. I've seen this personally. Yeah, but that's acceptable. Why? Because the military-industrial complex makes money selling it. Inspections by we keep claiming that Syria has these chemical weapons, and yet inspections by the OPCW have stated otherwise. As of 2014, they completely eliminated their stockpile of chemical weapons and their ability and their and manufacturing processes for creating them. Meanwhile, the United States still has tens of tons of chemical weapons that we were supposed to have destroyed years ago, and the areas where those were stored and destroyed, they're permanently quarantined. Those areas, as far as we know, can never be used for any human or industrial purpose again. And now there's a lot of evidence that the rainwater runoff from those areas is contaminating the groundwater surrounding those areas. So take all of this into account, put it all together. It's beyond time that the American people wake up, and we need to demand that our government and our corporate-owned media stop promoting regime change and more warfare. It's time for us to start promoting diplomacy, getting along with the other countries on the earth, instead of trying to be the global bullies. Stop the hypocrisy, stop the fear-mongering, demand proof of allegations, wait for unbiased investigations, and the OPCW investigation in Syria is unbiased. Our government wanted it to be biased. The OPCW does not assign blame. They only state that a chemical attack happened. Our government wanted the OPCW to go against their own charter and walk in and blame Syria before any investigation ever happened. In fact, our government said that the investigation was optional. So, wake up, and the only way that we're going to be what we were told all our lives that America is, the good guys, is if we demand it. We have to be the change. Right now, we are not the good guys. We have not been the good guys. It's questionable whether we have ever been the good guys. at least since World War II, we have not been the good guys. So for most of us, that's our entire lives. We have not been the good guys. We can be, but we have to make that choice. Our government is not going to make that choice. The corporations are definitely not going to make that choice. We have to make that choice. And we have to start making that choice now. We cannot wait. Share this video and or this article, and please hit like and subscribe. I'll talk to you later.